Good evening, good evening, good evening. What's going on, my good people? And welcome back to the Operation Hill 100 Hearts channel where we do what? Focus on healing, humor, and hot mother freaking topics. Well, today, ladies and gentlemen, you are here for the hot mother freaking topics. Let me let y'all know something. So apparently, Carlos King, y'all know I will review some of his interviews. The last interview I reviewed by him was with Claudia Jordan, right? So now, one thing I did tell you guys before is I like Carlos' style of interviewing. I feel like he does what needs to be done, and he does it in a way that opens the guests up. So I appreciate his interviewing style. So today I'm minding my motherfucking business, enjoying my summer day off, happy I don't have to be out here in this hot, muggy New York weather, chilling. Turns on my YouTube to see what is what, and who do I see on Reality with the King? None other than my boy Funky Dineva. I was like, okay, Funky, I'm not gonna lie, this was the duo that I knew I needed in my life. This was the duo and the interview that I knew I needed in my life. I was so happy to see him up there because a few things, right? Number one on the list is that I like Carlos' interviewing style. Number two on the list is Carlos and Dineva are really friends. So I feel like Dineva was going to be more forthcoming with information towards Carlos because he really fucks with him. As opposed to going on an interview with a person that you don't really have a connection with and just generically answering the questions. So in this interview, I was very much pleased with it for a number of reasons, right? The number one reason is the same reason why I got into Funky Dineva's commentary in the first place. He and I are very relatable. He and I are extremely relatable. So watching this interview, I was like, oh yeah, I see from where he is in his career, I see the potential for where I could go. Right? Because Funky Dineva and I are very relatable. But let's get into it. Let's get into the review of this video. All right, boom. So when it started up, it opened up. Remember, I used to see Dineva 5 days a week, right, on TGIF, and I don't necessarily watch his show now for two reasons. One, I particularly like when he's in character doing show reviews as opposed to when he's Q, because sometimes when he's Q, his commentary can be a little too harsh for me as a woman. But I love when he's in character doing the show reviews, and he don't do them as often anymore. So I don't watch his regular show now, so I don't see him as much. So seeing him, I'm like, oh my God, look at Dineva. Dineva looked good. Dineva looked good. You can tell he's still on his health journey. He didn't look too skinny. He didn't look too bulky. He looked really good. His skin looked good. He keep him a pair of new Gucci loafers. I mean, Dineva looked good. Dineva looked good. I was like, okay, Funky Dineva, especially because I have him on social media, and for whatever reason, Funky, your picture taking smile, let's do away with that, okay? So anyway, seeing him on the screen, I was like, yes, Funky, you look good, right? The setup was good. The lighting was good. You know, Carlos was there, look good. You can tell Carlos also works out and trains very, very well. Carlos' body looked good, right? So anyway, Carlos opened up the interview and he shared, you know, basically that him and Dineva are friends, you know, and they have been for quite some time. And, you know, he wants to really dive deep in this interview to get to know who Quentin Latham is, right? Which is Dineva's real name, right? So it started off with the backstory. He was like, listen, how were you growing up in Florida? Because he's a Floridian, right? So Funky Dineva said, listen, I'm going to explain to you the definition of what I am when I was younger. His words verbatim, he said, I was skinny, awkward, unattractive, and insecure. He said, but I always knew one of the things that was very, very strong in my upbringing and what was very, very strong within me is that I've always been very intelligent and I can articulate myself well, which I think is a key factor, which I think is because one of the key factors is he went to a predominantly white private school up until he was like in the 4th grade, right? So he said he didn't join no inner city public school until he got to the 4th grade. And he was like, one thing about it, and he knew if nothing else that he was smart. He was like, so when he got to public school, I went to public school. I know how the fuck they give it up in school, right? If you are living in the hood or your school is in the hood, public school can be a battleground. Public school can be a battleground. Public school can be a battleground, and if you're ill-equipped, then you could really sink, right? And what he described in his interview was that he was kind of ill-equipped He said because in the predominantly white private school, they don't do all of this teasing you and bullying you and picking on you. He said at the public school, that was the first place he was introduced to bullying. And he was like, what the fuck is this? He was like, so it really presented an issue for him because he was like, I'm not really used to this. You know, I don't come from this. And one of the things that he said, and I'll continue to point out throughout this interview how relatable we are. One of the things he said also was the reason that he struggled with the bullying is because he doesn't come from a family of fighters. And as soon as he said that, I started clapping because, first of all, I could already assess that watching his commentary and the way he responds to conflict at times, even when it's with other bloggers. I could see that that's not his nature to be physically violent. That mouth can be vile and nasty, but that's what he has. It's not in him. It's not innately in him to just jump up and want to fight, right? And I could identify with that because I tell people all the time I grew up in the projects. The outside of my house was 190 million% different from the inside. I grew up in a very loving, very affectionate, very caring household. When you stepped outside of my building, your ass better be ready to fight and you better know how to, else you will get demolished. And I was introduced, like Funky, at a very young age to having to defend myself physically, and I didn't come from that. I'm not in the house slap boxing with my brothers. I'm not in the house play fighting with my cousins. We wasn't allowed to fight. So coming out and experiencing that firsthand, you like, oh shit, wait. I thought we were just going back and forth. I didn't know you was going to hit me, right? So he said that, you know, he just didn't know anything about that until he got to the public school, right? He said, but what happened was, finally, when he got tired of the bullying in one of his classrooms, he got into it with one of the bullies and he cursed the bully the fuck out. And he was like, everybody in the class fell out laughing because some of the things that he was saying, and he made the bully cry. He said, so from that point on, he knew my mouth is my weapon. My mouth is my weapon, and my mouth is what's going to be saved my motherfucking life. And he was like, that's how he became known in the school. Like, don't say nothing to that skinny gay boy because he will read you for filth and break you down. He was like, and that's pretty much what protected him throughout his time in public school because that's what he had and that's what he knew how to use, right? Another thing that was so crazy that, again, very relatable to me and resonated with me was that he was always told from young that he talked too much. You know, you got be quiet. You talking too much. Shut your mouth. This or that. I remember my mother nicknamed me Mouth Almighty, Tongue Everlasting. And it's so crazy because me and Pookie and my stepson, we went to visit Pookie's dad over the spring break, and he said it. And I started laughing. He was like, what you know about that? I said, that's my mom's nickname for me, Mouth Almighty, Tongue Everlasting. What Dineva did say that I kind of differentiate with him with is that he said his mom and the people, his family, will more so be the one telling him, be quiet, you talk too much, so on and so forth. I wasn't told that by my family, but they were very aware that I was very talkative. Still I am right now. And also, even in school, right? So it would be like, okay, Khadijah does all her work. She got her work done. She's very bright. She's very sharp, but I have to constantly tell her to stop talking. And for my family, especially my mom, which I'll get into some things he said about his mom that I really could relate to as well, it was just like, well, you have to find her something to do because I'm not going to quiet her. You know, and I guess from early on, my mom knew that was my gift, right? And still is to this day. But anyway, then Carlos proceeded to ask him about his home life. And what he explained was that he was like, I didn't grow up in a two-parent household because my parents divorced when I was still a baby. So I have no recollection of them ever being together. By the time I got old enough to have a memory, they was already separated. He lived there, my mom lived there. What he did say, though, was that no matter who lived where, both of his parents were fully entrenched in parenting. So it wasn't like, oh, I didn't see much of my dad, or oh, I didn't really visit my mom. No, I lived with my mom and I saw my dad every weekend, right? Which was a good thing, right? He said when he got about 14 years old, he went and he moved in with his dad, and so he went off to college, right? So then Carlos started to ask him about what was the relationship with your father. So what he said was that my father was top tier in providing. My father was top tier in providing. It was not, I didn't want for anything, right? And if I did, it was strictly because it was outside of my father's scope of being able to make it happen. It was damn near impossible because when it came down to money, my fucking father provided, right? And I loved hearing that. I love to hear when dads are fully entrenched in the parenting, whether it be socially and emotionally, whether it be financially. I just love to hear it, right? But what he did say was that him and his dad didn't really have an emotional connection. So he was like, when it came down to, if you asked my dad my favorite color or what TV shows I was interested in, my dad couldn't tell you, because we didn't have those deep talks, and he didn't really want to get to know my personality. He pretty much observed me as a young person, made sure I stayed in line, and provided for me, right? And he was like, because of that, I loved him. I just realized that we didn't really have that deep connection. This is one place, which is not many of these, but this is one place that's not relatable for me and Funky, because my dad was locked in the social and emotional piece, right? He could, if my dad was alive today, he could tell you what I'm interested in, what I like to do. He knew everything about me, to a point, like, one of the things he realized early on is I'm a person who having my hair done is equivalent to being rich for me. I love to get my hair done. Love, love, love to get my hair done, right? And my dad had realized early on that that was attached to my confidence. So he always made sure that no matter what, he makes sure that I get my hair done, because he know what it made me feel. Whereas, again, another parent probably wouldn't even been paying that no mind, and it was the end of the world if I didn't have my hair done. Another thing, too, what did he say about the social and emotional connection? Anyway, that's basically it, right? Oh, no, this is what I was going to say about my own dad. One of the things that, and one of the reasons why I do what I do is because my dad had a running joke with me. And he would be like, oh, when I get older, I'm going to live with Deidre. Deidre going to be rich. Deidre going to be the rich one. She going to take care of me. And, you know, to some degree, thinking back on it, I thought about this a couple of years back. Thinking back on it, he was joking, you know, but was he? Was he? Was my dad joking, or was my dad prophesizing over my life? Or could my dad actually see that I had that potential in me? And now, as an adult and thinking about all of the things that I can and want to do with my life, I honestly feel like what he was saying is true. And I honestly feel like I have the potential to live up to that. So hence my YouTube journey. Anyway, like I was saying, right? So he also said that he felt like coming out and sharing his sexuality, it would be where, you know how most people think like your mom would be the understanding, coddling one, and your dad would be the one that it would take some time for them to come around, or they may never come around. He said it was opposite. He said one day when he was like 23 or 24 years old, he basically just shared with his father, like, you know, I'm gay. And he said his father, was like, okay, I mean, you my child and I love you. What the fuck that got to do with anything? I know that no matter what, I have to love you. You're my child. So you being gay, what that have to do with you being my child and me loving you? What I was cracking up about was that Dineva basically said he had this poetic response, like, oh, you know, I see what happens to these young men out here when they hide their truth, and you're walking around with a burden that I was supposed to bear for you, and all of this. And Dineva was looking at him like, I believe you and I love you and I'm happy you said that, but I also think you researched that answer to know what you should say, because Negro, your ass don't talk like that. And I was cracking up. So, but he said he did, you know, receive it very, very well, which made Carlos in turn start talking about his own relationship with his father. And basically what I got from Dineva and Carlos is that their dads was born in like the 30s and the 40s, right? So you have to remember, back then, nobody was thinking about homosexuality. Nobody's even thinking about sexuality in the sense that it's not open dialogue. It's not in your face. It's just, oh, a man and a woman, they get together at a certain age, they get married, they have a family. That's it. Anything outside of that scope is kind of weird, frowned upon, so on and so forth. So for their dads, they just think about, like, I wasn't thinking about you dating the same sex. That's not normal. So a part of it is not, I can't digest it because I only think something is wrong with it. I can't digest it because it's not what I'm used to. I've never had to experience this. And they were just basically saying how they understood their dad's level of thinking, but they didn't understand it initially. It took some time for them to get older, right? And what Dineva said was because him and his dad didn't have that affectionate and social and emotional relationship, that he yearned for it in his romantic interest. He was like, so when I dated, I always dated older men looking for that fatherly love. He was like, I was 15 years old having relationships with 40-year-olds. So Carlos King was like, I mean, what? Carlos King was mortified about this. He was like, what? So Carlos said, Dineva, you were getting molested. So Funky Dineva said, in a literal sense, yes, right? Because no old man should be thinking about dating no young guy. He was like, but to say like I was just laying down and somebody attacked me, no. He said I was going out searching for this situation, a much older guy to have a relationship with. So yes, I was molested, but not in a sense of I wasn't in agreement with it, right? Okay. He said, but he just wants to make it clear that boys can have daddy issues too. And I was like, wow. I thought about that, and I was thinking about my own brothers and losing my dad so young, and thinking about if some of that plays out in their upbringing. And me personally, I think more so for my little brother. I think my youngest brother, rather, because both of my brothers are younger than me, the youngest one. I think that he's an excellent man, right? But I think some things that a father needs to give to a son, my brother wasn't able to receive because he passed away too early on. So whereas my mom definitely does the nurturing and the coddling, and she's a support system, my dad would have been in a sense, more of the realist, and basically just modeling for him how a man should adjust and move forward. And I think my younger brother should have gotten more than that, but unfortunately my dad died. So anyway, what he did say was that when he came out to his father and his father opened his arms like that to him, he was like, that cured his daddy issues. He was like, after that, I stopped fucking with them older men because I don't want you no more. I was like, wow, just like that. But okay, it happens, right? So then Carlos was like, well, okay, what was your relationship like with your mother? So what he initially opened up with, which is one, let me stop right here. I have watched Funky Dineva since the pandemic, so I've heard him talk about his mom, and it hasn't always been in the best light. And not, you know what, let me be fair. He doesn't talk about his mom in a bad light. He talks about their relationship, and how tumultuous it was. So I didn't know what to expect when he opened up and started talking about his mother, but he opened up with something that totally resonated for me to a point it brought tears to my eyes as he was talking. He said, my mother, losing my mother, I lost my biggest cheerleader. He said, because my mother was the type of mother that if I come in the house and be like, Ma, I want to be an astronaut. Here my mother go looking up fucking planets and places that I can fucking fly to. And and that'll be safe for me, that I could adjust to. He was like, and I could come in the next day after she done purchased all that shit and tell her, you know what, I changed my mind. I want to be a plumber. And here my mother go buy me all the tools. Basically just saying that, my mom had my fucking back no matter what. Don't get emotional, Khadija. But I can't even fathom losing my mom. And do I know in life these things happen? Yes. But the reason I say that is for the same reasons that Dineva said it. My mother was the same. My mother is the same. Let me not say, well, my mother is the same. Let me tell you a representation of what I mean, right? I am in a relationship. Everybody knows I'm in a relationship with Pookie, right? My mom didn't know Pookie before I got a relationship with him. So it's not like she could be like, well, I knew that boy for so long. I know he's a good guy. She only knows off of how I feel, right? And the other day, last week was Pookie's birthday, and my mom called, and she's like, what does he want to eat? And tell me what he like. And she cooked all the food for him, and then she made banana pudding, and Pookie loves banana pudding. She made a pan for the family, and then she made him his own portion, right? And again, I know that she's doing them things because of me, right? It's because this is what you want to do. This is who you love. This is who you bring into the family. Okay, so now let me support you. So I reached out to her the other day, because that was Sunday and Monday, and I'm like, Mom, thank you so much. Thank you so much, because unfortunately, Pookie lost his mom. So it's always nice for women to show up that he has respect for as mother figures. And I know she know that would mean a lot to me, which is why she did it, right? So, once again, just having her as your biggest and loudest cheerleader when the rest of the world probably won't even give you that. So I was with Dineva on that, right? But what he did say was that her accepting his sexuality was something totally different. He was like, again, just being older and not having to ever deal with this in life, and all the misconceptions about homosexuality is pretty much what she led with. So it was like, the first thing she asked was like, did somebody touch you, and did I do something wrong? And he's like, no, I have nothing to do with that. Like, this is just who I am, right? And it's not who I am this week. No, I've been like this my whole life. It's just that I finally figured out what it is and solidified it. He said, but it took me 20, 23, 24 years to figure out this is who I am. I don't expect you to figure that out in 23 or 24 seconds. It takes time. I'm just letting you know that this is who I am, right? So he was like, for like 2 years after that, she just was very angry, very bitter, and they kind of would have like little situations because she internalized it. And he said one time he was home and she came and knocked on his door, and when he opened the door, she just looked at him with like disdain and basically said, God is not pleased with you. And Dineva was like, I slammed the door in that bitch face. I was like, oh shit. But he basically was saying like, I just didn't want to deal with her disapproval of my lifestyle because this is who I am. And I don't want to hear that the person I love and cherish the most doesn't approve of it. So I was like, wow, I could see why he talked about them having so much of a tumultuous relationship. But anywho, he just also said that, it got to a point where she got past her anger and her bitterness, and they were thick as thieves, and so was him and his dad. And he was like, just not having them around, it's sad, but he also knows he has guardian angels watching over him, and he's doing the best he can down here, right? So then Carlos shifted the conversation, and he was like, well, let's talk about some of the misconceptions about you. And I know one of the misconceptions about you is one I can relate to. That's what Carlos said, is that you're a messy queen and you're always in drama and yada yada yada. And Funky was like, you know what, in all honesty, that's very opposite of who I am, right? In my everyday life, people are not calling me every second of the day with drama. I don't have time for that bullshit. As a matter of fact, they're a little apprehensive to do it because they know I don't want to hear that bullshit. He said, but in all fairness, because I'm a gossip blogger, right? Folks are going to, that's the whole message surrounding being a gossip blogger. So I'm not going to go back and forth with them about who I am. I'm going to report the news, and after that I log out and go live my regular life, right? So I was like, okay, no problem. He was like, it's so much so that I be knowing shit about people and I don't be saying nothing. He said, and because I'm so good at that, whenever I withhold tea, I'm giving more tea. He was like, so I can pick and choose about what I want to share. And he was like, depending on the relationship I build with a person, I won't share their tea, because I respect them, right? So Carlos was like, yeah, I actually know that you will do that because I remember when you heard some things about me. And instead of you just putting it out on your blog, you called me and you gave me a heads up, and you also let me know I was going down the wrong road, and so on and so forth. So they shared that moment, right? And then he asked him, he was like, you have a written blog, and you went to school, you got all these degrees and so on and so forth. Why did you go into gossip blogging? So he was like, what happened was, he initially was working in accounting, right? He was like, but to make some extra money on the side, he had started throwing these big like gay soirees, right? These parties. He was like, and he gained a huge following from throwing the parties, and which he enjoyed. He said because it fed his creativity, his social and emotional needs. He can be around people, have a good time. Whereas accounting, you're more like button shirt in the office type of vibe. He was like, and then the next day when he would have to go into work, it would be like, oh, fucking boy, I'm back at the plantation. And he was like, whatever junk he had to pop about work, he would just basically share it on social media. And he was like, because he has such a big following, when he would share things on Facebook, people would be engaged. So they would be like say if he had one coworker, he was talking about like a dog for a week straight. If he don't talk about her the following week, everybody on Facebook like, so what happened with Mary and what happened with Sally? He was like, so then, that became like, oh shit, like I can really get into this. He was like, so he decided to take his talents to doing a blog because he had started watching the reality shows and Real Housewives of Atlanta. And he was like, the same way that I can discuss my coworkers, I could review these shows. And he was like, he won his motherfucking props because he is the first person to start that whole reality TV reviews. And I do agree that not only was he the first person to start it, he is legendary at it because I'm telling you, his reviews kept me afloat during the pandemic. So anywho, He was like, but he left doing the written blog because it just was too salacious for him and it came with too much drama. And like he said, in my everyday life, I don't deal with all of this drama. He was like, and it became too much because now when I'm writing these blogs, when I'm going out just to have a good time, people wanting to attack me and want to smoke with me from what I wrote on the blog. And he was like, one of the last articles that really fucked with him was he had got some naked pictures of Benzino. And then I think it was like a toss up between Benzino and Young Jock, who Carly Red was saying who had a bigger penis than the other, and he put the pictures up on the blog. He was like, it just was too much and it turned him off. So he was like, I'm gonna do away with this written blog thing, right? So then he also said how he got into the whole doing the videos. He was like, because he was now watching the reality shows and mimicking them, and he was Nene Leakes, the fabulous one, and the brew, you know, whatever, right? He said one time he was just cleaning up and found a wig. He was like, when he found the wig, he put it on and he recorded himself, like, you know, popping junk and mimicking and being funky Dineva, right? In all his splendor. He said he wanted to send the video to his friends so they could laugh about it, but the file was too big. So he said he uploaded the file to YouTube and then sent them the link. Well, anyway, that video ended up going viral. Right? And he was like, once it was out there, I'm like, fuck it, okay. So he was like, he just put the wig on again the following week and was like, I'm going to just keep this going. He was like, he did it a few times and YouTube reached out, and of course they wanted to start the YouTube partnership so he could get monetized and so on and so forth. So he like, okay, whatever. But again, he just enjoyed doing that because it was fun to him. He said that one time he had stayed out of work for like the first 4 days of the week. So he called his boss and was like, listen, I've been out since last week. It's Thursday. I'll just take Friday as well, and I'll be back on Monday. He said the boss was like, Dineva, you just don't come back at all because you're not happy here. We're not happy if you're not happy, and this ain't working out. All right? So go ahead about your business. The funky Dineva was like, you absolutely right. I went on ahead about my fucking business. He was like, because I wasn't happy in accounting. It's too stuffed shirt. It's too docile. He was like, I needed something to feed my creative side, you know, and also I love to talk. I love to interact. I love to engage. I wasn't doing that in the office setting, not in the corporate setting. So he was like, I just was like, man, fuck it. So he was like, he started looking into how he could get unemployment, how much money he would get, how he would maintain his bills like that, and if he could continue getting some little checks from the YouTube situation. So he said one time he put up a video and somebody at VH1 got in contact with him, and he was like, oh, okay. So him and the person talked, and the person was like, listen, we want to license your video. We're going to pay you $500. We want to use it for our Love and Hip Hop something. He like, all right, cool, no problem. Let me know how we work it out. She called back and said, I got a better deal for you. They don't want to just use your video. They want you to come in. The only thing is we ain't giving you $500. He like, oh shit. But he like, you know what? Listen, it's a chance at me getting some exposure with this whole YouTube thing. I'll go. So he was like, next thing you know, he looked up 4 months later after leaving his job, and he was on TV. So he like, okay, this thing may actually work out, right? So he was like, he continued to build relationships between Mona, VH1. He said Mona got his unemployment cut off because he had to sign some paperwork one time when he made an appearance. He was like, they must have took that paperwork and ran down to the Department of Labor because I didn't get my check that week. So he was cracking up about that. What I liked is that Carlos took the time out in the middle of the interview, and he was like, you know, I just want to thank you. I just want to thank you because had it not been for you, these shows would not have been able to gain all of this traction, you know, and all of this attention and be able to move forward. You really pushed the envelope. Come on here. You really pushed the envelope when it comes to reality shows and being able to help them move forward and being able to stay afloat because your commentary means a lot, right? And it does because there's so many shows that